It's on responsible research and innovation, and it's on funding schemes for civil society organizations. We have an excellent international panel in presence here, but also connecting two places, Copenhagen and Brussels, two capitals, for this presentation. So, probably make a short introduction of the panelists, and I think the details they can do by themselves. On the screen, I would like to welcome Gilles Laroche from the European Commission, DG Research. Is it still ethics and gender you're in? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. But you, head of unit
in charge of the Science, Web and Control Society program.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. But here, we have this. Okay, so we have Katrin Gruber from an organization in Germany, which is an international organization based in Germany, having a German name, which is hard to translate. Perhaps you will try it on yourself. Because I asked her if I'm allowed to translate the name, and she said, you can do, but I will give another response to that. Beside her is Ignacio Lopez. He's the coordinator of the RRI Tools project. He will talk about responsible research and innovation and the great ideas behind this project. And my colleague, Emma McKenna, Queen's University of Belfast, Science Shop, Queen's University of Belfast, talking about results of the Peraris project on attitudes of research funders funding research with civil society, with and for civil society organizations. So I stop talking. Would you like to give the floor to you, Gilles?
Sorry, I have problems to read.
You have problems
so
Can you hear anything?
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
But?
And we can hear you. So.
And we can hear you.
Perhaps you are talking too close from the microphone.
But I stop talking now.
Okay, so it's my turn.
It's your turn now. The floor is yours.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. And I see a lot of friends. And I'm really sorry not being able to be with you. Oh, just a second, because I can hear my voice. It's just awful.
You too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's better now. So sorry that I'm not able to be with you. I would have liked to be with you and already participated in the previous conference of the Living Knowledge Network. And I would like to thank the organizer for the very good work done. So thank you to all, and we are really proud of supporting the Peraris project. So the theme of this year's Living Knowledge Conference, an innovative civil society, is highly appropriate context for a number of very pertinent issues we will be deliberating during the next 1.5 days. This includes social innovation, the role of Science Shop, co-creation for sustainability, Fab Lab, and civil society empowerment, just to name a few. These are all issues that are very pertinent for Horizon 2020, the new EU research and innovation program. Horizon 2020 is clearly focused on achieving the balance of supporting research and innovation, and at the same time also ensuring values and needs of society are taken into account. With a budget of nearly 80 billion euro, Horizon 2020 will support excellence in science, leadership in industrial technologies, as well as the resolution of the grand societal challenges faced by the Union, like health, food security, transport, climate change, all very concrete issues concerning European citizens. It is certainly reassuring to know that funding is available, but for investing the way to tackle those issues, but money alone may not be sufficient. As the Commissioner Moira Gigan-Quinn underlined more than once, how can we ensure that outcomes resulting from research and innovation will be adequate for society in the long run? How can we be sure that solutions to the societal challenges based on research and innovation will correspond to the needs of the various societal actors and will not be rejected? Since 2000, the Commission has been funding research activities through Science and Society and Science in Society to answer these questions. And I can summarize the findings of more than a decade of research in 3 short statements. First, betting on technology acceptance by way of good marketing only is no longer a valid option. Second, diversity in research and innovation is a must for achieving greater creativity and promoting better results. And third, early and continuous iterative engagement of society in research and innovation is key to innovation adequacy and acceptability. In practical terms, all societal actors should work together during the whole research and innovation process in order to align both the process and its outcomes with the values, needs, and expectations of European society. This is what, in the Commission, we term responsible research and innovation. Since 2010, the focus of our EU Science in Society activities has been to develop a governance framework for responsible research and innovation. In practice, responsible research and innovation is a package aiming to better engage society in research and innovation activities. Responsible research and innovation, as it has become a field of experimentation, and innovation exploring 6 action lines: multi-actor and public engagement, science education, gender equality and gender in the research and innovation content, open access, ethics, and governance. Allow me to say a few words about each of these action lines. First, multi-actor and public engagement. The joint engagement of all societal actors, research, citizens, industry, business, and policymakers is the main action line. Research activities that have been funded by the Science in Society program show that societal challenges can only be solved by involving all actors at an early stage. Innovation must be co-created in order to ensure trust and co-responsibility between actors. For this purpose, we have created a specific funding instrument called Mobilization and Mutual Learning Action Plan, MML in short. Its aim is to foster multi-actor and public engagement in research and innovation by building a common approach to particular societal challenges across a wide range of actors. As today we have more than 20 MMLs dealing with some of the most pressing societal challenges, like active and healthy aging, human enhancement, food innovation, internet governance, sustainable fisheries, and we have much more. I would also like to mention an example of an action at pan-European level that has made a real difference in the governance and decision-making process of how the EC has this research and innovation programming. Our pilot project Voices, coordinated by XI, the European Network of Science Centers, launched 100 focus groups with 1,000 citizens in 27 countries in 23 languages. The engagement process led to the identification of 350 citizens-inspired ideas in relation to urban waste and how we can transition to a zero-waste society. The outcomes were then used by the EC to define the first Horizon 2020 call for proposals. This was the first time that such a citizens-focused process was used for defining EU research and innovation priorities, and we are very proud of this achievement. The second action line is engaging society also means that society is scientifically literate. Democracy is a consensus between able and willing people. Thus, formal and non-formal science education is the foundation for responsible research and innovation. You will not agree when I say that it is important for Europe to increase the number of researchers. But it is also crucial to equip future researchers and other societal actors with the necessary knowledge and tools to fully participate in and take responsibility for research and innovation process. This can only be achieved through education. The development of new tools for formal and non-formal science education will be supported by project funding in Horizon 2020. The third action line I would like to mention is gender in research and innovation. Engaging society means ensuring that all actors, women and men, are on board. Gender equality must be upheld in research and innovation institutions. And the gender dimension must be integrated in the research and innovation content. Ignoring these important dimensions would result in a waste of talent and in missed opportunities to improve the scientific quality and societal relevance of the produced knowledge, technology, and innovation. In Horizon 2020, the gender dimension is being integrated in the programs and projects. The fourth action line is open access. The global shift towards open access was confirmed last year in a study funded by the European Commission. This research suggested that open access has reached a tipping point, with around 50% of scientific papers published in 2011 now available for free. Putting research results in the public sphere makes science better, helps us to innovate, and strengthens our knowledge-based economy. Open access is not an objective per se, but one of the elements for opening science. Developing and implementing openness is a challenge that calls for solutions that are locally relevant, yet globally compatible, and solutions that are flexible enough to adapt to a rapidly changing environment. Open access is the default setting for all projects funded under Horizon 2020. Ethics. As we all know, European society is based on shared values. in order to respond to societal challenges, research and innovation must be anchored to the highest ethical standards and fundamental rights. In responsible research and innovation, this is a sine qua non condition for high-quality results and impact. Horizon 2020 will therefore ensure that research ethics plays a central role in all research activities. The last dimension that should be considered is really the umbrella for all the others. It is governance. Through this action line, we want to develop effective and efficient governance models for responsible research and innovation and spread good governance practices. A specific toolkit is currently being developed for training, notably among the beneficiaries of Horizon 2020, in order to mainstream good practices. Responsible research and innovation itself is a cross-cutting issue under Horizon 2020, meaning that it has to be taken into account throughout Horizon 2020, notably under the societal challenges and the industrial technologies pillars. The mainstreaming of responsible research and innovation in Horizon 2020 will be complemented by a dedicated research and innovation funding program called Science with and for Society. Science with and for Society aims to build effective cooperation between science and society, recruit new talents for science and pair scientific excellence with social awareness and responsibility. More than 460 million euros will be dedicated to science with and for society during Horizon 2020. As you are probably aware, the first calls for proposal for science with and for society were published here and cover the following. Making science, education and career attractive for young people. Second, promoting gender equality in research and innovation. Third, integrating society in science and innovation. And the last one, developing governance for the advancement of responsible research and innovation. The Science with and for Society unit of the Commission is now working on several questions and dimensions regarding responsible research and innovation. That covers not only how to mainstream responsible research and innovation in Horizon 2020, and how to federate the science and society community, but also how to promote institutional changes to foster responsible research and innovation in research institutions. This implies reaching out research organizations, universities, and funding agencies, public authorities, just to name a few, and engaging them in responsible research and innovation. A lot has been done to engage society in research and innovation, and we plan to do a lot more under Horizon 2020. We are keen to learn from you, and in particular, how public engagement can be embedded in the research and innovation process and content for supporting community-based research and innovation. We look forward to working with CSOs, science centers and science shops, and higher education establishments, including civic universities, to better understand the existing barriers, share good practices, and explore solutions to empower CSOs and help research performers to better integrate and reward public engagement in research and innovation. By working together, we can co-create suitable policy measures and explore means to further financial support to build awareness, know-how, and capacity. I thank you for your attention and have a very fruitful conference. Now I can hear again my voice.
very much, Gilles. Gave us a lot of inspiration, food for thought, points to build on, and hopefully you will get a lot of proposals in the fields you suggested. Yeah. But I want to ask the audience if there are questions at the moment. Okay, the coffee wasn't strong enough. So, thank you very much, Gilles. I don't know if you have the time to listen to panelists as well. Because I think the next presentation will be of interest for you, because you mentioned that you want to learn where are the barriers in funding schemes, and Katrin Gruber will talk about that from her specific experience with a certain project, and from her experience developing probably recommendations how funding schemes could better fit for the purposes of civil society organizations. Katrin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me? No. I thought so.
Take this one, or?
No, maybe I should put it more. We tried it. Better now? No. Ah. I start again? Okay. So I changed my title, or made it more precise, funding schemes as potential barriers to transferring societal problems into research questions, or a small matter of equality. So it will be...
Just ask, do you understand that, Gilles?
No. Technology is not always working.
Yeah. You don't hear it when it comes from that microphone?
Then I can...
Now we can hear you.
I mean, otherwise, there's
Okay.
I can take this then. Okay, it's okay. I mean, I don't like to wear microphones because I talk with my hands, but I will do my best. I would like to stress where I'm talking from because perspectives are shaped by different parameters, and one very important parameter is the workplace. And in my place, it's the Independent Research Center, Institut Mensch, Ethik und Wissenschaft, and the founders didn't think about that we might work on an international level, so they chose a name that you can't translate, because when you translate Mensch into man, you would leave the women out, and when you would translate Wissenschaft into science, you would leave then the humanities out, so I stick to the German name. We are a research center run by a circle of 9 equal partners consisting of organizations working for disabled people and self-advocacy group. Since 2007, the primary focus has been on disability mainstreaming and inclusion. In particular, this means promoting consideration of the needs and perspectives of persons with disabilities from the very beginning of research and legislative projects. Our actual focus is on the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People, the UNCRPD. It has been ratified by nearly all states in the world, as well as the European Union. Our institute is consulting organizations to develop and implement action plans, and we conduct research provided the grant applications are successful and provided grant schemes are there. After these preliminary remarks, I now want to provide a concrete example of participatory research to highlight the potential barriers caused by funding schemes, or in particular, the lack of relevant or appropriate schemes for participatory projects, and yes, I will come to recommendations. In 2010, our institute was approached by the VKM, the Verband Kleinwüchsiger Menschen, a support group of people with restricted growth. Members of their board were concerned about the reduced possibilities for older members to participate in societal activities and all being involved as active members of the group. The board members had some hypotheses and aimed to conduct a study in order to substantiate their concerns and motivate appropriate responses among different bodies, health insurance companies, doctors, public agencies, and policymakers. One hypothesis was that the aging process is accelerated for people with restricted growth. The reason for this could either lie within the person themselves or in societal conditions. The first barrier for our planned project was that neither the budget of the VKM nor that of our budget allowed researchers to devote a lot of time to writing a proposal. It was therefore quite some time before the societal problems, as seen by the VKM, were successfully transferred into usable research questions. It's of course worth mentioning here that in general, this transfer process is a challenging one, as it's not easy to transform the concerns raised by CSOs into research questions that can be answered through scientifically sound methods. And I think those colleagues who are sitting having the same, I see some nodding. But this is not the topic of and the focus of my talk, but I'm happy to comment on it in the discussion or later during the breaks. The second barrier, which was more important than the first, was that it proved to be very difficult to find funding schemes where the project could fit in. In the end, there was a health insurance company, the BKK, that provided us with some money, in fact it was more a lump sum, to finance a pilot study. But due to their requirements, we had to focus on health issues, especially on prevention schemes and actions. The project did not offer us the opportunity to answer the highly relevant questions regarding the barriers that older growth-restricted people face at present, or the conditions that would enable their greater societal participation. This meant that research on societal innovation could not be done. Indeed, up to now, neither the VKM nor our institute have been able to find a funding scheme where this question would be seen as relevant in the interest of funders. The fact that the program committee of this conference has included this paper on the panel can be seen as a sign that the story can and should be generalized, and that it can be taken as a foundation for some recommendations. These are not necessarily new, but as they have not yet been taken up by many funding organizations, it seems important to restate them. They were indeed part of the recommendation of the European project STAX, and I'm happy that Claudia came just now to listen to this panel in 2009. In the report it was stated, participatory research calls should be as open as possible so as to allow the partners to identify themselves what are the most crucial problems they have to face and to design together projects which are based on their real needs, rather than to try and fit their concerns into too narrowly framed calls for projects. The wording of the topics in the annual work programs could be better adapted to research and partnerships and take more into account the potential added value of tapping into the diversity of knowledge and of CSO's engagement. There have been similar calls at the EU level. In fact, STAX was funded by such a scheme, but it is rare. There are also still active programs, PICRI, funded by the regional government of the Ile-de-France, and there was the CURA program, Community University Research Alliance, funded by the Social Sciences and Humanitarian Research Council in Canada, and I would be very happy to hear of any other programs, and please join me in the break or tell it to the others. Speaking as I'm now at the conference of the International Science Shop Network, it would be disrespectful not to acknowledge all the work that is being done by people here in the room or on their home bases. And as I have the great honor to talk after the representative of the European Commission, I will take the opportunity to comment on this new Responsible Research and Innovation Program, which of course has many positive sides, and I will not argue about that. But I will raise some questions. Because when the discourse about this program is very often said that as many stakeholders as possible should be involved, from industry, research and society. This sounds good. However, I always have my doubts when programs aim to bring too many different partners together to develop, in brackets, a common understanding. I think when we have this common understanding, we don't get what was mentioned by Jill, really diversity. My experience that is quite often the weaker partner whose perspective becomes submerged in the process of coming to a common understanding, and the CSOs are the weaker partners. René de Schomburg, who was actively involved in framing the scheme for responsible research and innovation, obviously has a different view than I have. He wrote, or I have a different view than him. He wrote, responsible innovation should be materialized in terms of the research and innovation process, as well as in the terms of product outcome. The advantage is that actors cannot exclusively focus on particular aspects. For instance, civil society organization addressing only risk aspects, but have to take a position on the innovation process as such. In contrast to von Schomburg, I find it more than simply necessary, I find it rather crucial that CSOs can and should focus on particular aspects. This does not necessarily have to take part within the framework of the Science with and for Society program, but there are several reasons why a focus on particular aspects are important. Getting involved in these processes and in networking is time-consuming and might therefore not be an option for all CSOs, especially the smaller ones. I'm not arguing against networking. I love networking. But just to, I think it's also important to see that there might be some limits for some, and that by only building on networking, we exclude smaller organizations. And there's more than one facet of innovation. Rendering possible research that is triggered by CSOs ensures that a societal facet which may be beyond the market rationale is not neglected. Third, it could prove very important for society, as funding such research might be a relatively cheap way of forecasting societal challenges. CSOs will always be the weaker partner in this dialogue, hence they need to be strengthened and supported. Participatory research funding schemes should be as open as possible. They should take place at the local regional level, the European level, but also the national level. For self-support groups such as the WKM, the regional level is too small and the European level too complicated. For them, the national level would be most appropriate in order to get some answers to their concerns, and this is what I refer to here as a small matter of equality. I borrowed the title from a report in the UK of gross restricted people. I will come to the end by thanking my colleagues Birgit Behrisch and Alicia Prinz, and Sabine Popp and Beate Twittenhoff from the WKM, who worked with us on the pilot studies and who took part in the abstract proposal, but who got somehow lost on the way until now. But I would like to bring them again back in the picture, and I come back to the last panel. If I would have been the organizer of the conference, I would promise that the next time there will be a CSO speaking from the panel from the beginning to bring the view of society directly in and not indirectly by us researchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katrin. Questions, please? Yes? Is that a yes? No. Let's see around. We must be really tired. There were really good comments in that. Having the calls as open as possible and focusing on partnerships, which I think is given in at least some of the Horizon 2020 calls in Science and with and for Society. But I'm afraid when these calls are so open, what will the evaluators do? I think this. So, Gilles, do you have an answer?
Yes, I can. Even I've not been able to understand what has been said by the previous speaker. I could only understand the last words of the sentence. So, but the mainstreaming of responsible research and innovation is a fact now in Horizon 2020. So engagement, we are now in training our colleagues, and we are preparing guidelines for evaluators. So it's not only for the program Science-Driven for Society, but it is also for the other programs. So perhaps if you have had a look to the call for proposal, you will see that the mobilization and mutual learning action plans have been taken also by other programs, and that they will make sure, I confess, this is just a start, but you know, it's a change of mentality also inside the Commission, that we have been asked to provide names of experts for the evaluation of their own projects and proposals. So it is already a start, and we are also delivering guidelines and briefings for those experts. So this year will be a test for us. Definitively, another thing which is important is that the advisory groups for the preparation of the work programs, all programs have an advisory group, but in Science-Driven for Society, the advisory group is composed of experts from the other advisory groups. So it is for us the possibility to pass messages on how to write topics in the work programs. So we have put in place different instruments, and we will follow this in order to make sure that the other calls are open and that different societal actors can participate in those calls.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from 1, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Suraida Levesi from UK, Lincoln University. I think Catherine is bringing us one topic that is very important for me, is how we are connecting with grassroots groups. And thinking about evaluation, what do you have, and that is for the European Union basically, what do you have to engage in a participatory evaluations that are not traditional ones, that are engaging people from the beginning with participation about learning lessons and how to go to the next step, rather than to evaluate if they are doing right or wrong? These are one of the big barriers of evaluations at this moment with community-based research.
So,
I think if you want to change it, then you have to really change the evaluation process and to have other indicators. And but you can evaluate as the. I mean, I'm quite sure that Petrie has been there as a peer review evaluation, and it was also in the Community University Research Alliance where there has been a review. Not every project was financed, but I think you could have indicators as is it feasible. I mean, why not say that CSOs have the right to get answers to some questions? We are not talking about millions of money, and maybe this is not feasible on the European level. Because what I'm trying to advocate is that there may be CSOs who have certain questions, and it might be interesting to give them the way to get answers. You have this in the science work, but they are on the local level, and I'm trying to make a not a national science workshop. I don't think it wouldn't work, but you find another funding scheme. And again, I do believe that if one CSO has one research question, if they need to find 5 or 6 partners in other European countries who have the same research question, then I think they will lose the interest. It doesn't fit. Not everything fits for all. One size doesn't fit all.
So not everything fits for all. Was their argument? It's necessary to find not only focus on the European funding, but also have a view and foster national and regional funding for the problems expressed by civil society organizations. Are there more questions?
Thank you. Frank Becker from Berlin, Technische Universität Berlin, Science Shop Kubus, and I completely agreed with your last statement. I'd like to add one aspect. With the example for our last proposal for an application to the Horizon 2020, we integrated in the project management the money and the resources to assist these smaller, weaker partners of the civil society organizations to deal with all those questions when you are engaged in a European research project. And I think there must be some organizational innovations in these funding schemes to assist civil society organizations to enable them to participate in these huge European research projects. And the last statement, maybe ourselves as science shops, we regard to ourselves too much in a perspective as a researcher, and maybe we forget sometimes our roots from the grassroots movement.
So, pass the microphone.
Hi, I'm Karin Zacharias. I'm from Mauergarten. It's a civil society organization and urban gardening project cooperating with Kubus in Berlin. And we thought much about funding because we have what said Katrin Wohlen before. There is a lack of time. Civil actors have no time to think about research questions or to evaluate. And so it's in our project too. The main actors of our gardening project are not here because they have no time. And they try to find ways to find income schemes for their engagement, because when the project is, when they act really in the project, they tend to give many time, and then is the question, how should they organize their lives? So I thought about the idea, I proposed the idea to think about official ways to financiate the civil actors in projects, something like a work package, civil society collaboration, and they're like easy going small contracts with a person, with a private person, which is not possible today in the funding schemes. Private persons cannot be paid by research projects, and one should think about this. I have not a solution, but I propose to think about how to also integrate this in European projects.
Thank you very much. We're getting closer to the next presentation, which is on the views of research funders and research for civil society organizations. But there were more questions.
Thank you. I'm Mark Lipinski. I'm so-called, what you could call the father of the PICRI program in the Région Île-de-France. I'd like to come back. It's not a question. I'd like to come back to the problem of how to evaluate the research projects that are being performed in cooperation between scientists, academics on one hand, and civil society organizations. The question of evaluation is manifold, but one level of evaluation is when people apply for financing. In the PICRI organization, there is a jury who looks at the different projects. The jury is composed of both people from the academic side and from civil society organizations, and then there's a selection process, the classical selection process. Now the problem is the evaluation after the project has been performed, and I think we need to, as you said, we need to find new indicators as to how to evaluate this project, because in real science, the way to evaluate a project is whether something has been published at the end of the project, and whether it's been published in a good journal, or excellent journal, or high-ranked journal, and so on and so forth. Now, this cannot apply to civil society organizations. So one way to go could be to ask, when the call for projects is made, to ask for what kind of indicators do you propose on how the project will be evaluated afterwards. And then you actually have something that you can relate to. That's one possibility. But I think it's a real question, the evaluation of these projects. But for society in general, just to demonstrate that civil society organizations can improve their skills, their competence, their scientific literacy should be enough. And as one person said in a working day we organized on this kind of project last September, nobody comes out of these projects as you entered the project. So that's really important.
Thank you very much. A last question, a last comment? No? Then, thank you very much for that. I think this aspect of evaluation of outcomes has also to do with the valorization of project results, how to continue after the funding period. So this definitely should be considered when setting up an initial phase, which is a project-funded period. So we're not working for the 2 years of funding, but we're working for a longer term, longer activity. But now let's come to the. No, I would like to get Emma McKenna in, because if we were talking about funding and the need from civil society organizations towards funders, and within the Polaris project, we at least had a little research. No, it's not research. Sorry, it was a survey among funders and their perspectives on civil society organizations' involvement in funding. Emma, the floor is yours.
I have some slides, I think, but I can start anyway. The work that we did was part of the Polaris project. So we start at the end. No, we'll start at the beginning. The public engagement with research engagement with society project that some of you will have heard about this morning. And I guess what we were trying to do there was to explore different mechanisms for engaging people with research in different ways, and particularly engaging with CSOs on research issues. But this particular part of the work was actually speaking with research funders themselves to try to understand a bit more about their experiences of funding research with and for CSOs. So we did this work in a range of different countries. We, for example, worked in, we did most of our work in the UK, Ireland, the Netherlands and Germany, but we also did some work in France, Spain, Italy and Romania. So we did cover a good broad spectrum across Europe. The thing that I should say though is that this research was carried out in 2012 to 2013. And in fact, when we wrote our plan to do the research, it was 4 years before that. And things changed so much over that time period, and in a very positive way, in fact, because when we wrote the plan, this work wasn't really happening very much at all. In fact, Polaris, I think, was the first MML. And as time went on, increasingly we had a sense that this work was beginning, that people were beginning to think about it. And you know, when Gilles Laroche talked about his example there of where there was this work happening, that would not have, none of that work was going on at that time, so I think that's quite exciting. So it's just to say it's a moment in time in a way, the work that we did, and we were very conscious even when we were writing the results up, and it was Norbert and myself were involved in this. We kept thinking, should we update this? And then we realised that that way lay a huge amount of extra work, and we could never keep up with how things were working forward. So the goal of the work, I guess, was to try to help funders to better assess the options to take up publicly engaged research in their research strategies. And if we could move to the findings. I guess one of the very positive findings that we had was that when we were speaking to research funders, they were interested in this work in a way that we would not have anticipated when we first started, when we first thought about it. So there are national and international commitments now to research partnerships, and I think at the time the shaping of responsible research and innovation wasn't clear, but in fact it was clear that responsible research and innovation was coming down the line, and Horizon 2020 was there. And I think very much this was stimulating interest from other research funders as well, because they could see that the European Commission was thinking about it. So there was an emerging interest in examining and spreading out models of good practice. In fact, what we found when we were speaking to funders, they were saying, we understand there's good things happening, can you tell us a little bit more? So we were effectively acting as a conduit for information from one funder to another in the same region, but also then between regions as well. We were acting as a conduit for information. So one of the main conclusions we reached is that we are not enough to share this information. There needs to be better fora, better places for funders themselves to share information on how they're doing this work. We very much had a sense that in some areas they were trying things, they weren't sure if they were working, and it's important to say we didn't speak to CSOs, we spoke solely to funders. So from the CSO perspective, we don't exactly know if it's working or not. And the funders were clear about this, those who were trying it. They were saying, we don't know how well this is working. So clearly they need a space to evaluate and think about these things themselves. The second thing is, and we all know this, that research with CSOs and involving CSOs often does not fit into traditional research funding structures. And I think we were articulating some of those frustrations earlier. And again, research funders were conscious of this as well. They were conscious of how much elasticity there was in their own funding schemes or not. Some were saying we have schemes where it's possible for CSOs to apply and they're not applying because CSOs don't understand that they can apply for it. Others were saying we haven't managed to make it sufficiently elastic to enable CSOs to apply. So they were clear that it often doesn't fit, and that there are often obstacles around procedures and participation and so on. Traditional funders also need information about terms. I think what we found was that different countries use different terms. I think in the UK we're fortunate, there has been quite a bit of work on developing a shared vocabulary. So there's a clear understanding of public engagement. In Germany, I think community-based research is used. There was a phrase that you used more?
It's not the understanding. So we had to explain a lot when we made our interviews.
So there were different ways of understanding it in Germany as well. There are different ways in Ireland, it's civic engagement, for example. In the Republic of Ireland, there are different ways of speaking about these things. And again, research funders were saying they felt that the same confusion existed amongst academics and scientists themselves. Where we saw good practice, and I guess some of the good practice again that we saw was in the UK because they've been working ahead on this. There was a need for strong leadership and kind of working together and structures to support the work, and I know there are colleagues here from the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement in the UK. Funders certainly were very interested in that model. Also in India, where I was speaking about this work more recently as well, people were very interested in this as a model, having a central function to support both research councils and research funders, but also to support research on the ground and universities. But that there needed to be these kinds of structures. The other thing is that they felt there needed to be institutional mechanisms to help research activities become more visible and accessible. So I guess what the research funders were saying is there are three actors here. It's not just us. We're here and we are trying to build research funding schemes, or thinking about it in some cases, not trying. But also we need universities to be on board, and we need CSOs to be on board with this as well, is what we were hearing. And this takes me to the next, yeah. So the recommendations that we came up with for funders, obviously to seek opportunities to exchange experience with others who are thinking in this field. I think what we found was that where people were doing this work, it was often isolated. It was often even maybe perhaps not embedded fully in the work of the research funding organisation. They weren't getting a chance to exchange views and to think properly about how to move forward with this work. Often too, they didn't feel they were evaluating it in the right ways, because again, as the question came up, how do you evaluate this kind of work? And that the lessons learned weren't being fed into the bigger organisations sometimes, certainly not at a regional or at an international level. Also, that they should explore where interests are shared with CSOs and think about a formal model as well. Because there are formal models of engagement in some countries with industry, as you said, with the more powerful actors. There were some models actually around healthcare research, which is why I was interested in what you were saying. There were some models where CSOs worked in more structured ways with research funders, but you could see how it's easier in the health field, in fact. But it felt like there needed to be more discussion and more space for discussion between CSOs and research funders, not just of the "can you give me money" discussion, but also developmental discussions of how you move this work forward. Also, clearly, there is a question about the criteria for calls. There's a question about how you develop research funding streams, and there's a little bit in the CSO side about this as well. And clearly designing funding streams that enable more participation from smaller actors, from CSO actors as well. For example, funding policy is often that the key funder on a research project must be an academic, or that the person who applies for the research funding must have generated X amount of research funding, which in practice means it will be an academic and only a certain type of academic. So there are things in particular that you can look at there, but there was no question that for funders, responsible research and innovation and Horizon 2020 was acting as a driver. And I think for all that we can say we have questions about it, or there are other things we would like to see, in terms of changing the environment, it's really doing a good job. We also had recommendations for universities and HEIs. These are things that research funders are saying they want to see happening to improve the likelihood of research with CSOs being taken up in funding streams. The first is really that research training should encourage public engagement with research. So this is right, and this is something that we've done in our other part of WP7 as well. And you'll probably, or in the other part of Polaris, you'll see maybe some of these policy briefs floating about. We looked at how this work is embedded in university curriculum, and how do you expose young people and early stage researchers to the idea of co-created research, because of course they will be the scientists of the future. But this was coming through very much from research funders as well, that universities need to think about this. They need to think about how they're encouraging young people to participate in co-created research projects with CSOs. Also, again, they were saying within universities there need to be mechanisms for coordination of CSO and university research, and again there was a clear role for science shops there in terms of stimulating and encouraging and supporting this kind of work within universities. And clearly for universities and HEIs, a need for exchange as well. Because still many of us are learning in this process, and opportunities to talk to people, like indeed this conference, are very valuable. And again, I think some of this echoes the things that Gilles Laroche was saying as well, in terms of trying to think about how you embed a culture of public engagement within universities, and how you encourage young people to become involved in it. Recommendations for CSOs, again, some of them quite practical, about becoming involved with research funders, about starting conversations, having discussions, seeing if you can help to shape research programs. We understood from funders that their door might not have been wide open, but it was open a little bit, and there was an opportunity there to have some discussion with them. Again, not of the can you give me money, but of the can we work together to think about a way that we might be able to design a funding stream where research that we're interested in will happen. So developing relationships, going along to meetings, participating in the evaluation programs. There also, actually from many funders, was a question about the skills in CSOs for commissioning and managing research. And in fact, you know, we spoke to a funder who did some work supporting CSOs to become more skilled in research as well. And that was quite an interesting question for us, because to some degree we would hope that the work we do in science shops might actually encourage CSOs to think about research, sometimes in a more structured way. But also there's no question that there are CSOs who are very heavily involved in research as well. So it didn't seem to me, in a way, this was part of a question about perhaps empowering smaller CSOs to think, to become research-minded, but it was clear that that was not the whole picture. The other thing was about looking out for small-scale funding streams, and I was interested, Kathleen, you said about the BKK funding scheme, again, for CSOs to begin to move towards these fields in smaller ways. So that's almost it. The only thing, as always, research, well, no, it's not a research question. An investigation actually stimulates further questions. And I guess the questions that we ended up with, first of all, where are we now? Even though we're only a year and a half on from some of it, things have moved on. We're aware things have moved on hugely. We were very aware as we were doing this that we weren't asking CSOs their experience. I know some work had been done previously, in fact, in this field. But we would hope that the experience of CSOs is changing, and there's no question in my mind that this is work that remains to be done. And increasing the communication, what are the best ways to increase communication between CSOs and research funders, and is there good practice there that we could evaluate? And again, evaluating good practices in terms of how CSOs are engaged in funding streams. So those are the kinds of things that we find as part of this process. There is a briefing paper. It's slightly bigger than the other one, which is also around outside if anyone's interested in some more detail. There's also a report, but I couldn't carry it in my hand luggage. So by all means read it, but I would say set aside some time to read it because it's quite detailed. And if you want to discuss any of this further, please, myself or Norbert, because we were both involved in this, do come along and talk to us afterwards.
Thank you very much, Anna. Please give the opportunity to comment or ask a question. We're almost running out of time.
One scientist from the University of Laguna, Canary Islands. Any recommendation for, let's say, the gatekeepers, people who are at the university and the CSO, for example, myself? Yeah. Thank you.
So do I understand right, you're an intermediary between? Well, I guess we didn't really think about that, but I guess the recommendation there was sort of to continue trying to build the links, probably, because, well, certainly as an intermediary myself, from the science shop point of view, one of the things that we're trying to do is to build links, and I guess where I think we will focus our energies in Queen's is probably looking at the role of students and young researchers and trying to train them up to become more research-minded. But not just research-minded, to be able to think properly about co-created research, about valuing the knowledge from outside the university and understanding that there are different types of knowledge. And I think those kind of brokerage roles are very important. You know, sometimes you can influence academics who are there, and you can work with them and you can buy them in. Sometimes you can't, and you just have to wait for them to move on. But I think if you get the young people coming in, this is a personal opinion, this isn't a finding from the project. If you can get the young people coming in, I think then that's, the young people are the people who will make all of the changes, really.
Okay, thank you. We'll look at the time. But you gave me a good keyword to combine the first presentation by Gilles with the last presentation by Ignacy. It's about developing skills, which are definitely necessary. And I think this is a big part of what the RRI project, RRI Tools project is about. And so the floor is yours to explain what we can expect in the future.
Thank you. Can you hear me with that?
Yeah. Can you hear him?
No.
Okay. Okay.
And they have problems to hear.
So the big microphone is better?
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes.
Yes. Yes, this is okay.
Is it? Okay. Well, thank you, Norbert, first of all, for inviting me and the project to the Living Knowledge Network. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to thank you and the organization, but finally I was rethinking about it because after being the last one in the after lunch session is not the best present someone can give to somebody else, but thank you. And in any case, congratulations because of the work you are doing. Because I'm a newcomer in here, so I'm not one of the ones that have been coming here every year since 6 years ago. And I would say that shows that your work has been spreading and that the need to engage people and civil society organizations in science has become something that is in the agenda now. And I think that's something to congratulate you and everybody that's been involved in developing that in the last years. So in the last minutes, I will go on some things that Gilles have said before, but maybe, well, I will try to skip them if I feel they are too repetitive. But I would like to focus in the following minutes as well in responsible research and innovation, but especially in our right tools, which is the project I coordinate, that Norbert and Living Knowledge Network belongs to, and that some other people in these rooms, like Rosina, if you mind to stand up right now, Daniel, Rosina, and Giuseppe, if you don't mind. So this is the people that is in the project as well. Rosina is the deputy coordinator, so if you have any question, you can ask us. And I would like to focus as well and to try to demonstrate, as it was said before, that the political context now really gives a very good context to foster or to push forward the need of the public involvement in engagement in science. In a minute, I will just pass by these two slides just to tell you who we are. We are a private foundation, and we focus especially in science and society issues. We reach around 2 million people in Spain every year with different projects, and we fund research. So just in a nutshell, so do you know who we are? I don't know if you know the Wellcome Trust. It's better known than us, so it's something like that. But in Spain, and smaller, but quite big in size. It's the first private foundation in Spain. Being for long involved in science and society issues, and in funding science in quite a big way in Spain. It's around 20 million a year in biomedical science. We've been getting interest in the need of involving patients and other civil society organizations in research, and this is why we've been gaining interest in RRI. Responsible research and innovation is usually abbreviated as RRI, which is for a Catalan people very difficult to say 20 times in a talk. Okay, so I will begin just saying a couple of things about about what I think of the relation of the public dialogue in science. Here, this is something that you might know already, of course, the Spatial Eurobarometer that was released in November 13th. And here the big thing is that 55% of Europeans think that when it comes to science and decisions of science, public dialogue is required. And they come to that decision because 77% of them think that technology have a positive impact in science, in society, sorry, but 62%, which is a huge, big amount of people agrees that science makes their way of life change too fast. This is what people is saying and has been saying for a long time. And as you know, and this is why I was trying to thank before Living Knowledge Network and other institutions that have been advocating for public engagement with science. But many other institutions have been embracing the concept of public engagement lately. This is the Mechelen Declaration, which was released, as you can see on the top right-hand corner, 20 days ago. And I don't know if you know about it, but it's the Association of Associations of Science Museums and Science Centers. So we have the European ones, the American ones, and so on. And if we go to the next one, this is the declaration they released 20 days ago. Finally, in 3 of the 7 points, they say that they will engage people with research, basically. Half my time is devoted to a science center, And I know we are a paradigm around Europe and around the world of one-way science communication and the deficit model and so on. But finally, let's say that they are already moving into that direction, and many of them are really getting involved in projects that do so. So this was just to say that more and more institutions are embracing the concept, the people is as well asking for it. So many things have been done, as you of course perfectly know better than me. And now I would like to get into the part of RRI, because really, well, this was said already by Gilles Laroche, and most of you know, but really I believe that we have an amazing opportunity now, an amazing opportunity because the political context finally gives a great opportunity to move in this direction. We can move. So I think Gilles already read this definition, but I would say it's not. We can stop in it for a second. RRI is a transparent interactive process by which societal actors and innovators become mutually responsive to each other with a view to the ethical acceptability, sustainability, and societal desirability of the innovation processes and its marketable products. And they always use this, they say it's an umbrella concept, and we believe it is, that has to take public engagement, always put in the first time, public engagement, and that dialogue is in the definition itself, but as well with these other components that have to be taken care of. Because I was at a meeting lately, it was about health and aging, and there was somebody that, I think it was from Karolinska, that got to the point exactly. If you empower the citizens and you give them responsibility in their decisions, you have to take, of course, ethical issues into account. So and this is in relation to health and aging, I mean, not everybody will be able to take decisions on their own health in the same, with the same capacity, of course. And normally, now, for example, with health, we are moving towards a system that is not really sustainable, the health system. And for some people, empowering the citizens means diminishing the health system. So we have to take care about that. And public engagement has to come with all these other components. And not only that, but some authors, can we put the one before, please? There is a final line here that this public engagement has to be done with spatial key features. Those are some of them, well, the ones that Owen and Stilgo and so on, which are in our project, by the way. They say this dialogue has to be anticipatory, reflective, deliberative, and last but not least, responsive. So if the dialogue with society goes in some direction, researchers have to steer their way so they react to the needs of society. So, well, this is we can go to the next one. Yes. Yes. Well, during the last years, many projects have been founded to develop a framework for responsible research and innovation, and now it comes ours. In the next slide, we can start talking about RRI tools. RRI tools is a project that just started 2 to 3 months ago. We are in the analysis phase of it. It will develop, we say, innovative tools. It's a bit not modest to say that, but you will have to do transformative learning with that tools around Europe and do a wide dissemination of the concept of responsible research and innovation. So, it will raise awareness, do training, and disseminate and implement responsible research and innovation. It is not the only project that will do that during the next years. If in 2012 there were 4 projects at least funded in this direction, ours is possibly in scope the biggest one in Horizon 20 in the last year of the 7th framework program, but there's more than 6 or 8 other projects that are trying to develop responsible research and innovation. So if we move to the next one, probably the best. Next one. And here's the consortium. No, here's the consortium that will develop the project. The asset of it is a 26 members multi-stakeholder consortium. We are the coordinator. Irsi Kasha is the deputy coordinator who has been involved in the writing of the proposal very strongly. They are a hospital and they do research in AIDS, and they have a unit of public engagement. And I won't go through all of them, but as you can see that there are some foundations and some of the experts that have been developing the concept of responsible research and innovation as UCL and the University of Amsterdam, Free University of Amsterdam, but then 6 umbrella institutions, those ones here, Living Knowledge Network, the European Foundation Centers, so the private foundations that fund science, European SchoolNet, so the schools, European Business and Innovation Network, so we have business and industry through there, and Euroscience, so we have, let's say, the scientists. And then we have some hub leaders that will train and disseminate through Europe the toolkit, and as we can see in the next map, through these hubs that we have already created. And the project is a 7 million project. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's quite. It will try to reach. It's very ambitious in size. Those hubs. It's a network of 19 national hubs that will be formed by one member of the consortium, and then from 3 to 5 other institutions that we have to carry on more than 60 to 100 workshops around Europe, and that we'll have to do more than 120 meetings with policymakers. So one of the big things that the project has to do is to convince regional and national funding schemes to apply responsible research and innovation. So this is one of the key aspects of the project, I would say. We can move to the next one. Of course, the project will have to build on the existing tools that have been working during the last years, you know, and many of you might have produced some of them. Here I have just some examples. You can see the next one. As we are talking about funding, one of the examples that we are following with a lot of interest is the EPSRC that you may know. They have already released a statement in favor of responsible research and innovation, which is very interesting. And they have translated those concepts before, the key features of RRI that I was saying before, responsiveness and so on, to better, more common language. So anticipate, reflect, engage, and act. But now, even if we have great common examples, let me finish with this metaphor. Those are 6, remember the 6 key issues that we were talking before: public engagement, gender equality, and so on. Every time you talk to one expert in one of those fields, you feel that I remember of this elephant, because if you had to build the concept of responsible research and innovation, hearing what they say, you will get that right now. And if we want to get the real elephant, many things have to be done. We have a long way ahead. So I would just like to tell you, RRI Tools just started. We are in the analysis phase. I see here that there are some people from the advisory board. So we have a lot of work ahead, but I would like to invite you to keep an eye on our website, which is still not there, but I hope that in a month we'll, because we really need your help at the beginning. If you have tools, it will be a collaborative 2.0 where we're putting quite a lot of resources there, and we hope, we had the vision that it will be a place where responsible research and innovation can be developed, that it will have to gather the existing tools that you might have already developed. So please approach any of us here in the room that are related to the project if you'd like to help us, and if you think that we can help you. And let me finish with something that I heard a couple of miles away from here 3 years ago. We need ambition at the policy level to support the best science for the world and not the best science in the world. It was in the Science and Dialogue Conference here in Odense, and I would say that we have moved forward quite a lot, and that we are in a situation, not perfect situation, but better than a couple of years ago. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. That was a call from coming from local and going global with our experiences, support this big European project that will have influence on further funding on the European level. But I also want to pick one of the statements Katrin has made in the beginning, that common understanding might reduce diversity. I think we should keep that on our mind as well. So getting all the facets into what we are going to promote in the future. Jill, are you still there?
No, he is not.
Okay. I wanted to thank him for making this conference possible. So we started a bit later, so I'm free to have 5 more minutes for questions.
Yeah, so thanks to the speaker, especially for showing us the cartoon from Philippe's presentation, which I had attended at the workshop last year, but I'd forgotten about it. And so the blind man and the elephant is a wonderful metaphor to think about the different meanings of RRI. And that's crucial because there's a power struggle over the meaning. And this is no surprise, because every time a mainstream institution incorporates a concept, such as sustainable development back in the 1980s, there's then a more intense power struggle over its possible meanings, especially between the broad, deeper meanings in its origin versus the more narrow meanings, which helps to domesticate the concept and make it almost irrelevant. So in the case of RRI, we already see this power struggle. That René von Schomburg, who catalyzed the debates about the concept, emphasized that it's a design strategy which should give a steer towards achieving desirable societal goals. That means opening up the concept of innovation, in particular, to around multiple possibilities for future society and multiple meanings of innovation, including the societal aspects. However, already, around the time the concept was accepted by the chiefs of DG Research, they already reduced it to risk and ethics. This is explicit in a statement by the commissioner last year. And now we see that narrow definition incorporated into the 2014 work program. In the calls for RRI, they imply that it's about avoiding risky innovation, and risky in the narrow sense of biophysical effects which might be unanticipated. So that immediately constrains, narrows the potential role for both CSOs and social science academics who want to work with CSOs for just the opposite purpose, which is to open up the concept of risk, go beyond ethics, simply as limits, as that's their stereotypical meaning, towards multiple societal futures, which are generally preempted by the dominant policy framework. So I want to ask a general question. Now, how can people at this conference and our colleagues keep the open definition in practice in a way that gains research funding?
Thank you. You can say.
I just have to comment on the blind people, because one can't do that.
Okay.
Sorry, just a brief comment. I just have to. I need to comment on the category of the blind people. Maybe we underestimate blind people. Maybe they would find other ways to build the elephant. So I would advise you to choose another category the next time, please.
I'll take note of that.
Yeah, at least when I'm there.
Metaphorically.
So this was a question. I don't know if we can answer that question here, especially when one of our biggest funders has left us, but at least some other funders are here and might give an answer to that.
Well, I will, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the sustainability example, and of course, when you, I would say, this is just when you get the concept to be in the political agenda, I mean, it's not the end of the way. I mean, you have to continue fighting for the against the people that would like to have a narrower point of view from it. I think that, I mean, at least I know that, for example, I work at a foundation. We fund research. We belong to the research forum of the European Foundation Center, and the next conference we're having in Poland in October 2014, for example, is about excellence and different ways of evaluating excellence in research. And our RNI is going to be there, and it's I would say it's in the agenda. Everybody's in the open, in the more broad sense. But of course, there's a tension, a clear tension between those who would like to have a narrower version, but we have to keep on fighting for the other.
Okay, thank you. Last comment by Emma. I'm sorry, I've got a first stronger signal from the organizer that we're running out of time.
I would just say, I suppose there are different ways to think about these things, and you know, I think about these things as a pragmatic optimist. And to go back to the elephant metaphor, but hopefully in a less controversial way, you know, the question of how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And while this isn't perfect, this isn't a perfect answer, we can look at it and say that there are things that we wish were different. I just look back at where we were 10 years ago and I think, oh my goodness, this is a lot different now than it was then. We're even able to have these debates now. At that time, this wasn't even a topic for discussion, except amongst small organisations. And yes, round the edges, we need to challenge and we need to engage in riskier activity. There's no particular reason why research funders should choose to fund that until it starts to come into the mainstream. And the things that were once regarded as risky and outside the mainstream are now moving into the mainstream. So I think the people who want to challenge, please keep challenging, keep engaging in the risky behaviours, because that's how we get them into the mainstream. But we should be glad to have moved as far into the mainstream as we have.
Sorry, I have to cut it here, Michael. Or, yeah. Thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you very much to you for listening. I'm sorry for cutting the discussion, but I hope you will find a way to connect with the people here and continue the discussion and ask your questions.
So now we're going to make a very fast exercise. There's the most beautiful coffee outside, so you have to see how fast you can evacuate the room because it needs to be divided into 3 rooms.